Well, none of you have brought up a point that a Fox commentator did this week, who said that young voters are going to get really excited about these Donald Trump gold sneakers, that these gold sneakers with a big T emblazoned on them, that is going to get people to walk on down to the polls, specifically young black voters.
I will allow you, Mayor Scott, if you choose to do so, to respond to the tomfoolery and attacks on you for having the nerve to be black and also a mayor.
Well, I think, listen, I know, and we all know, and you know very well, that black men and young black men in particular have been the boogeyman for those who are racist and think that only straight, wealthy white men should have a say in anything. We've been the boogeyman from them since the first day they brought us to this country. And what they mean by DEI, in my opinion, is duly elected incumbent. We know what they want to say, but they don't have the courage to say the N-word.
This is Brandon Scott, the young mayor of Baltimore, who is dealing with a bit of scrutiny from not just the interview and being kind of goaded into having a vicious response to Republicans, but he's also facing scrutiny from being a young black male mayor in a city that's undergoing a catastrophe at the moment. But you can see in his grace in having a very even-keeled tone in his response that it is representative of the fact that we're in a new age now where many of the tropes of black men, that they're hyper-aggressive, that we aren't educated, that we are hypersexual, or that we are athletic prone, are kind of being wiped away simply by the availability of new forms of media. And what's beautiful about not just him in his representation of himself, but the movement of BMI, SYSBM, Passport Bros, etc., is that a new way of looking at black men is being defined by black men. I'm not one to spend a lot of time worrying about national elections because it just seems to me in each concurrent election, people align themselves to candidates more and more in a way that's akin to the way people do sports teams. And so instead of having thoughtful intellectual conversations about what you're going to do or who you're going to vote for, it just becomes more an emotional response as to who they want to win. But what I do care about is the way that people appeal to the black vote, and specifically the black male vote. Because often we see these kinds of campaigns like this, where it's just assumed that black men are supposed to vote in a certain way because black people are supposed to vote a certain way. Something that we've seen before.
I will say, you know, a lot of black men sometimes feel like they're ignored or they're put down, particularly sometimes even by black women in the media. So this is not that. But I do hear Roland's point that felt ignored. But you feel ignored and then you go over to the other side. The oppressed feel oppressed. So then you go and try to align with the oppressor. So I'm not putting black men down, but sometimes it's like, well, some of you Kevin Samuels following Tariq Nasheed quoting people, please look at the truth and see what's happening and get in line with some of the black women. Is majority, like he said, vote Democrat, but that margin of people who can be plucked away from your people and go advance policies that harm your people, I just don't understand that.
We remember when Tiffany Cross made the appeal to Tariq Nasheed, Kevin Samuels following men to quote unquote get in line and vote in their best interest against the oppressor. And of course, no one other than BGS Ibmore had something to say about that.
You know, before the video, we heard Tiffany Cross talks about, I know you feel that you've been ignored, okay? That patronizing tone, that paternal tone that she has used with black men, that's very familiar. And telling us that we should get in line and vote for Stacey Abrams or vote for whoever, instead of voting for or aligning ourselves with people that oppress us. And she's literally telling us who the oppressor is. Like black men are too adolescent to know who's in their favor and who isn't, who's in their corner and who isn't. And does it matter who's in our corner and who isn't? Because at the end of the day, you have to make your wishes known and you have to make what you want out of this democracy apparent to your elected representatives. And they are representatives. At the end of the day, they're not your leaders, they're your representatives. They're there to reflect the will of the people that they represent. I mean, how dare she talk about oppressors in a sense that we're still in slavery? And what makes another party an oppressor.
This is a broadcast from MSNBC from February 23rd, 2024, and what we're hearing in this exchange is a recurring theme. Of course, we could argue all day about Democrats and Republicans, and to be honest with you, I'm not that big into either party. But what I do have an issue with is this idea that a certain group of the Black American populace, in this particular case, Black men, don't have the education or the wherewithal to understand how to vote responsibly with their vote. And that a certain group has to remind Black men in particular how we're supposed to vote, or else it's all going to come crumbling down. Or better yet, in this case, they're simply saying shoes that Donald Trump is selling is going to be something that's going to tip the balance in the election for Black men. This, in my opinion, is infuriating, but there's more.
Republicans constantly say the quiet part loud, right? And they have let African Americans know how they really think about them as voters and as human beings. I mean, I'm also just confused. Can the shoes actually stay on the market because they have a red bottom? And we know Christian Louboutin is a little litigious when it comes to red bottoms. So it's like, Donald Trump, think through this. Do you want another lawsuit? I mean, you've got enough. But I think, you know, the fact that Republicans are saying, well, Black boys will love them because they're sneakers. That's it. That's your policy position. But Donald Trump's running out of things to shill, right? We've had water, we've had steaks, we've had ties, we've had universities.
But then why don't I hear from the Charlamagne the God or the Killer Mikes out there saying, hold on?
Because they need to read a book and or talk to a political scientist, right? These are people who have platforms, massive platforms. And
huge influence over young people.
Massive influence over not just young people, but Black men in particular, right? And they are the ones who are parroting Russian propaganda, things that you can find easily on Facebook, sort of saying, well, neither one does anything. So, you know, I don't know. If you want to stay home, that's up to you. They refuse to lay out how far this train can go off the track, right? How far Donald Trump can take us away from democratic ideals. This country is not perfect. Every Black person knows that, right? But incrementally, we have to actually work towards the ideals. We can't have people consistently telling young people, well, if you sit this one out, I don't think it'll make a difference because, you know, Joe Biden hasn't done anything for your community. Absolutely not.
Listening to this kind of conversation, you can understand why my interest in national politics is waning. It just seems like people are aligning themselves with a team that they want to win or quote unquote is supposed to win. But what's interesting now in this age of BMI, Black male independence, is that we have now the voice of independent Black men being voiced. And instead of the fear tactics that you're hearing in this video that used to always corral Black men into saying, oh, this is the way we're supposed to vote because it's the way we're told to vote, or it's the way that we're supposed to vote as Black people in the Black community. Now what we're getting is an independent voice of Black men saying, you know what? I want to hear more than just scare tactics of we're going to go to a dictatorship, because that's not enough. What is the argument? What do we get out of it? And interestingly enough, we're going to hear the scare tactics in the dismount.
We know that African Americans are most susceptible to environmental racism. We know that having debt relief for people who've gone to college, that actually closes the wealth gap, right? So African Americans can actually start to buy houses. I mean, the list goes on and on. So when you have people like Killer Mike and Charlamagne the God, I think they are actually real dangerous threats to democracy and participation for African Americans in particular.
I know younger people use the word triggered, but it was this particular comment that when I saw the TikTok, I said, you know what? I'm going to make a video about this because it triggered me. It bothered me. Once again, Black women have to carry the load and Black men get to sit out and do whatever. My question simply is, what is so threatening about two Black men who have found ways to create relative wealth to engage the political process from the point of view of independent Black men? Do I agree with all of their politics or all of the things that they say? Of course not. But they're engaging the Black politic establishment in a way that's never really happened before. We've seen it with the emergence of Ice Cube and his plan. And to call these men a threat to democracy, and they are ushering in the age of autocracy and the end of American democracy, is a scare tactic. And it's a scare tactic that may be on borrowed time because in the age of Black male independence, there's just not much more string on the rope. Thanks to the work of many scholars, including BGS Ibmore, Dr. Green Gorilla, Dr. Ronald Neal, and the author of the 18-Point Black Male Political Agenda, Dr. Hasan Johnson, black men, for the first time in the history of black men in America, have a specific political agenda, a political voice specifically for black men. The agenda addresses black male issues from family court reform to education, homeless, unemployment issues, small business support, many of the issues that are central and key to what many black men see as vital issues to vote for. Not the boogeyman issues of, if we don't vote the way that we've traditionally voted, it's all going to fall apart. What's beautiful about the age of black male independence, BMI, is now we're in an age where the black male identity is being defined by black men. And if you want the black male vote, you are going to have to offer more than scare tactics and trinkets. Because black men have grown to a point now where we are redefining ourselves in our own image, and we're telling the world who we are with our own mouth. And anyone that wants to approach us for something from us will have to offer something to us as we are. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you in the next video. Take care, guys.